Welcome to OLC 4.0. This is term 2B. Today is class 22, and we are looking at assignment 32, as well as looking at possessive nouns and pronouns. Today is May 22nd, 2025, and this is Jillian Percy. Here are all the ways to contact us. If you want to talk to me while I'm in the studio, that's on air, 1-800-465-7144. If you want to talk to me when I am at the office, that is 1-800-667-3703, extension 2211. Keep in mind that's only good during office hours. After that, I'm not sure it works past 4:30. My email is jillian.percy@nnec.on.ca. My secondary email is jillian.percy@nnecschools.org. My Facebook is capital G, capital P-E-R-C-Y, space, capital W-A-H-S-A. If you send me a friend request there, please send me a message as well, because I do sometimes get random requests from people I don't know who aren't my students. I only respond to students on that Facebook. Let me know what class you're in, what your student name is, and what assignment you are wanting help with. That way, when I get on there, I'm already kind of prepared and I can answer you more effectively. There are two different YouTube channels that you can check out classes on. And there is the school one, which is called the Wausau Distance Education Center YouTube channel. And that has all the classes from the entire year from all the teachers. Having said that, this particular term, the classes are not being posted. The class that is on there right now would be term 1. Now, there's no significant difference between the two, so it's fine to watch that. I'm just kind of letting you know. Over on my channel, which is also G Percy Wausau, there will be term 2B classes, which will be in a playlist called term 2B OLC 40. Okay, so if you want to watch this particular one, that's where it goes. Okay, there are so many different ways to hand in assignments. The easiest, if you have a DEC at your learning center, is just bring it to them, have them scan it, and then they can send it to me. If you do that, make sure to hang on to your originals because you'll need them for your portfolio. You can also fax it to me at 1-800-463-7852, or you can also, outside of Ontario, 1-877-990-2023. A lot of people will email it to me and include the assignment as an attachment. When you do that, the best email to use is studentwork@nnec.on.ca. We have that's an Uber email that everybody's work goes into. The secretary checks through it, logs that it's been submitted, prints it off, puts it in our mailbox. And that way there's sort of a backup in case someone else needed to take a look at your work. Like if I were to step down, or if you were going to do the course again next year because you didn't quite finish or something like that. But anyways, some people share documents with me through Google Docs. When you do that, make sure to include me as somebody who can view or edit it. Otherwise, the link won't do anything. Some people mail it to me, but it's not the best way. It will take a long time. If you do that, make sure you hang on to the originals. It would be very sad to have the originals get lost in the mail, and that can and does happen. Some people prefer to take photographs with their phone and then send it to me either through Facebook or for email. When you do that, please make sure the photo is really crisp and clear to read. And that when you do that, you also send it as an attachment. Don't just share it with me, because that's designed from one phone to another phone, and that's not what I'm opening my stuff on. I'm opening it on a computer. So it comes up at a very strange size, and I have to kind of play with it to get it to be the right size. The other thing is, occasionally I've had people try and stick 4 or 5 photos on a Word document, and that doesn't work very well. When I go to expand it, it loses a lot of its clarity. I think it's had to go through the email. So I don't get the same crisp, clear vision that you would get. So I can't really read it. Better than using a photograph is to use a scanner. And it's basically as easy as taking a photograph. It just produces a much higher quality. So for example, I use Adobe Scan. It's free. You download it. Once you've downloaded it, you open it up. You position it over your assignment, just like you're taking a photograph. It will kind of line things up. You can play with it if you don't agree with how it's lining things up. Take the picture and just keep on taking pictures of all your assignments until you have, not all your assignments, but all the pages of your assignment until you've got them all there. Hit continue. Then it will let you preview. and see if all your photographs are clear. If you need to reorder it, that's a good time to do it. Then hit Save PDF. Give it a name. Generally, I give the course name and the assignment name, like OLC 40, assignment number 13, and then save it wherever you save things. Google Drive, Dropbox, your phone, wherever you save your stuff, okay? And then send me an email and attach it. We are currently in week 6 of this 9-week course, so we are 2/3 of the way through. Remember that the last day of this term is June 13th, which we generally reserve for exams only. This course does not have an exam, so the last day we can accept assignments is June 12th. This course has a very long culminating activity instead of an exam, and it may take between 5 to 10 hours, depending on how quickly you write. Some people will write once and they're happy. Some people write 5 times and take a lot longer. So I don't know what you're like as far as that goes. So you have to kind of judge how long you like to have to do things. But I do request that you don't leave this assignment to the last day. It will be very difficult to complete in one day, especially if you work full time or are taking care of young children all day. Generally, once you start Unit 4, ask me for the culminating activity. That way you've got plenty of time to work on it because it is worth 20% of your overall grade. That can raise you from a D to a B. If you are a potential graduate for this June, I strongly recommend completing all assignments by May 30th, which is the end of next week. If you are concerned about that, give me a phone call or an email and I can try and work with you and figure out what assignments are the biggest priority. Keep in mind, it can take me quite a bit of time to do all my marking and to write up a report card. I have a huge stack of marking just waiting for me on my desk. And I currently have 134 students just in this course, and I have other courses. There is no way I can complete all the marking in one day if all my students leave it to the end and hand it in on June 12th. If you are running behind in your assignments so far that you think, you know what, I don't think I'm really going to get this done by June 12th, that's fine. Just let us know and we can just enroll you in the summer version of the course and you continue your work in the summertime. I'm going to be the one doing the marking in the summertime. There are no live classes during the summer term, but you can still access the recorded classes that are on YouTube, and I will still answer emails and stuff. If you do want to include, enroll in the summer term, if you go to Facebook, there's a WASA Distance Education Center. Go to the new page, not the old page. We've posted our online application link there. Click on it. It's just a simple little thing to fill out, and you would send that to us. If you are having trouble with it, just give us a phone call. We can probably do it over the phone. Or if you're already sending things in to me, it's fine to kind of notify me and I can kind of work it out with the counselors, okay? Okay, our learning goals. By the end of today's class and assignments, I will write complete and correct sentences that show good punctuation and accurate grammar and word usage. I can identify the topic, the audience, and the purpose for writing, and the requirements of a particular writing form. I can use pre-writing strategies to generate ideas for writing, and I can demonstrate understanding that subject, audience, and purpose for writing influences my choices of form, tone, and level of language, which we will also learn about. All right. Okay, so we're going to be talking about possessive nouns. This is one of those things where I find sometimes possessive nouns and possessive pronouns, they get a little bit mixed up. So I wanted to tackle this is when we want to show that an item belongs to somebody or to something, we generally add an apostrophe and an S on the end. So see how it says Fred's backpack and Mom's car, Kukum's house, and Lukey's boat. Now, if I took out the apostrophe and just had an S, that would sound not like the car that belongs to mom, but like many moms have a car, okay? So that apostrophe is showing that it's not plural, it means that it belongs to somebody, okay? Now, that's when it's singular. If the word is already plural, there's a really good chance in English that it already ends in an S. So we don't add an extra S because it would just sound like we were all snakes, and it sounds kind of ugly. Instead, we just put the apostrophe after the original S. So see here we have the students' lounge. We've got the plural S, we just put an apostrophe afterwards. The teacher's parking lot, and we put apostrophe afterward. Our dog's food, put an apostrophe afterwards. The province's agreements. And you can see how it ends up sounding a little bit more like a Z, but it's not a Z, it's still an S, okay? Now, occasionally there are English words that are plural, in other words, more than one, but they don't end in an S, usually when we're borrowing them from another language. In that case, we do just continue to use the apostrophe S. So children is already plural, but we can easily say the children's playground. Oxen is plural, oxen's barn. Men is plural, the men's retreat. Women is plural, but we would say the women's dinner party. So that's possessive nouns. Now, moving on to possessive pronouns. It's not always a noun that is showing possession. Sometimes we're talking about something with a pronoun. And so we have special pronouns that indicate that it's a possessive, that somebody belongs to it. We don't use the apostrophe when we are using pronouns. So I like my shoes, right? My is showing the belonging of who the shoes belongs to. Let's drive your car. Your is possessive. His textbook was stolen. His shows possessive for a guy. Her makeup looks great. Her shows possessive for a girl. The dog knocked over its food dish. This is one that's really tricky because it looks a lot like its IT apostrophe S, but IT apostrophe S is a contraction. Okay, I'm going to put that down there because I've got it on there. If you're on the radio, you can't quite see this, but I've got it down there. For it's, when it's a possessive, there's no apostrophe, just like the rest of the pronouns, okay? We also have plural versions. Our house is blue. Your family is nice. Your is one of those funny ones where it can be singular or it can be plural. Their brother is the male. Okay, so while we were talking about pronouns, I just wanted to do a quick review and kind of an expansion on other pronouns. We've talked about subject pronouns before. They're probably the ones that you're used to seeing the most often. They will come before the verb, and they will be the one doing the action or that we are describing. So I have my homework done. You are my best friend. He is bringing home pizza. She is not ready to go swimming. Now it can be an animal, an object, or a concept. We don't normally use it to refer to people. It's usually meant to be for what we call inanimate objects, things that are not alive. Although, like I said, we do use it for animals. It is a windy day outside. My key is lost. Do you know where it is? We also have we for when we're talking in the first person and including ourselves, but there's more than one, like we will go shopping. You, plural version, grade ones, you need to sit down now. They can be used for multiple people or multiple inanimate objects. So I could say they are going to the store, or I could say something like the chairs don't go with the table because they were bought at a different store. In some languages, you would have a different pronoun for people that were plural compared to inanimate objects that were plural. In English, we just kind of use both for the same thing. There are also what we call object pronouns. Object pronouns receive the action, right? If I say, I kicked him, right? Him is the person that got kicked, right? And again, they're linked. So we use me for the object. You stays the same. He becomes him as an object. She becomes her as the object. It stays the same. We becomes us, and they becomes them. So I could say mom gave the present to me, right? Which is different than if I'd said my mom and I went shopping. And the reason why it's different is in the second one, I'm doing the action. I'm the one going shopping. In the first one, mom's giving something to me. And I don't know why we need to indicate that with pronouns, but for some reason we seem to need that. Dad gave the groceries to you. That's how it's being used as an object. I ran to him when I heard the noise. So him is the object receiving the running, basically. I told her that I was tired. Again, Her is the object pronoun that's receiving the telling. The dog wants it. Whatever it is, it's the object. Come to the movies with us. Us is, in this case, an object because you're originally talking to you. For whatever reason, whenever we're doing a command like that, the assumed subject is always you. You could go bowling with them. I don't know who the them is, but them is the object pronoun. One thing to keep in mind, and we're going to talk about this more in a second, is subject pronouns should agree in number, gender, person, and animacy with the object pronouns. We sometimes call this subject-verb agreement. I'm not sure why, because it also affects pronouns, but that's the thing. So why is it so important that the pronouns match the subject? Oh, hang on a second. There's an extra line in here. Sorry, this was used to be a page on something different. This is another area where the pronoun and its antecedent have to match or agree with each other. Now, antecedent is the subject that the pronoun is referring back towards. If you're being super proper with your English, then you would generally use a pronoun when you've already used the subject once, like Becky was mad at her mom. Okay, so her is referring back to Becky. I wouldn't usually use her if it wasn't really obvious who the subject was. Sometimes if there's two sentences that are close together, we'll do it, okay? It could also be another pronoun. I could say she was mad at her mom, and then her is referring back to she. Now, like I said, it's important that the pronoun and the subject, or the pronoun and the other pronoun, agree with or match each other in number, gender, person, and animacy. This is one of those things where every language has different rules about this kind of thing. Some are very specific, some are less specific. It's kind of a little bit of a confusing area. So number, in other words, they both have to be singular or they both have to be plural. So if I'm talking about like one boy, then I have to use the word he. If I was talking about multiple boys, then I would have to use the word they. Person is kind of like the point of view, who's doing the action. First person is considered things like I, me, mine, myself, or we, us, ours, ourselves. Second person is you, also you, yours, and then yourself or yourselves, depending on whether it's singular or plural. Third person is where we have the most of. We've got he, him, his, or himself. She, her, hers, or herself. It, its, or itself. There's also one, one's, or oneself. Who or whom. And then for plural, we would have they, them, theirs, or themselves. So generally in a sentence, we don't try and mix and match the person point of view, because when you do that, it can sound as if more than one person has suddenly gotten involved in the actions. So if I say, I took my car to the garage, my and I match, right? They're both singular and they're both from the same person. But if I said, I took your car to the garage, that doesn't match. Now, that's okay if I meant that I took your car, but if I really meant to say my car and got mixed up, then it's confusing. So they're both singular, but they aren't the same person, right? Animacy. Animacy is one of those funny things. Generally, people are considered animate, right? Alive. Objects or places or ideas are inanimate. Animals are funny. Sometimes they're included in animacy. Sometimes they're considered inanimate. I'm not sure why. It is what we would usually use for objects, places, or animals. Like, I went to the store. It was busy. Let me think. I picked up the pen. It was cold. Animals, again, it could be, if you don't know what gender the animal is, like I saw the crow, it was big, I would just use it. It also, we use the word they for plural people or plural objects, right? It gets used for both. So here's an example. So the office gave its employees each a phone. But the moment I switched to plural, the neighbors planned their block party together. A wolf hurt its paw. The cats howled their complaints at the door. Okay, so gender is one of those tricky ones. Traditionally, we used to make sure that male subjects used male pronouns and female subjects used female pronouns. So I would say Jake washed his car, Jennifer took her bike to work. Currently, the word they is sometimes used by some people, or sometimes people are kind of refer to everybody that way because they want to avoid misgendering people by accident if they're not sure of gender. And of course, some people will make specific requests regarding which gender pronouns they want to be referred to, which generally it's considered that you override the typical rules of grammar. So then you might have something like, Jamie gave their resume to the hiring manager. The other time you would use they, even when it's singular, is sometimes we call it like the indefinite pronoun, where we might say his or her, but we just kind of default to their. So each student gave, I could say his or her phone to the teacher, but a lot of times we say each student gave their phone to the teacher. It doesn't mean the students suddenly became multiple. It's just showing that it doesn't matter whether they're his or hers in that situation. So why does this all matter? Well, one reason it can matter is because it can cause a lot of confusion if the subject and the pronouns don't match. It can look like there's more people involved in something than there really are. So for example, if I say, I gave my lunch to Becky, those match. I gave my own lunch to Becky, which I have every right to do. If I said I gave their lunch to Becky, it's implied, first of all, that I've given several lunches to her, not just one, and also that they weren't mine, so I might not have had the right to do that. It's a confusing sentence if that isn't what I meant, right? David gave his car to the mechanic. In the first sentence, I'm implying that David's giving his own car away, okay? In the second sentence, if I said David gave her car to the mechanic, it's someone else's, specifically somebody female, maybe his mom, his wife, his sister, or his daughter. And again, this is one of those things that is different by every language. I remember taking Russian a million years ago and the teacher saying, we would never say something like, the man went on a date with his wife. We just say in Russian, his went on date with wife, because the moment you say his, it would be implying somebody else's wife. So every language organizes that a little bit differently. The last type of pronouns are what we call reflexive pronouns. And they are when we are trying to emphasize that the subject who's doing the action and the object who's receiving the action are the same. Sometimes we are also using it to indicate that somebody did it, a certain action alone. Okay, this is another area where the pronoun and the antecedent really should match or agree with each other. So I hurt myself, right? I wouldn't say I hurt me. It just doesn't sound right in English. I don't know why, but we use the reflexive pronoun. You helped yourself to some cake. Sandra fixed the bike herself. In other words, no one else helped her. She did it. He cut himself while making dinner. The dog tripped itself on its own tail. We planned the wedding ourselves. You took yourselves out of the game with lack of teamwork. The workers stood up for themselves by forming a union. Okay. So now we're kind of moving on. I called these kind of loosely text concepts because I wasn't really sure what to call them. It's kind of a lot of tiny little things that are important, but there isn't a whole lot to say about them. So as we're working on assignment 32, we're basically talking about a lot of tiny little things, okay? The big thing is the idea that it's not just what you say, it's how you say it. Oh, what happened there? That was weird. That was very strange. Okay. As you've probably noticed throughout the course, knowing your purpose and knowing who your audience is before you start writing helps you to choose an appropriate writing form or format. If you're trying to inform people about an event, you might want to choose the format of a news article. If you're trying to persuade somebody to buy something, you might want to choose an advertisement. If you want to entertain people, You might choose a song, poem, a novel, a short story, or some other formats. We can also adjust other parts of our writing. One way we can alter our communication is through what we call our language level. Language level is about how hard or how easy your writing is to understand. And we do this automatically when we speak, right? Nobody talks to a 2-year-old with great big words and ultra long sentences. We will generally choose simpler words and shorter sentences that have a better chance of being understood by our 2-year-old audience. Generally speaking, shorter and more commonly used words indicate an easier language level because they are easier to understand. Longer sentences and more uncommon words indicate a higher level of language. Another aspect of writing that can be changed is our tone. Tone sort of conveys a sense of our emotion or our attitude. Our tone might change according to our audience, our format, and our purpose. In speech, we often convey our attitude about something through the volume or through the sound of our words. Someone who's feeling angry about something may have a very loud volume with a harsh tone. We can also convey tone in our writing through the type of words we use, or the length and variety of our sentences, the type of examples or details we give. The tone might be formal, like in school or business, or informal, like talking to your friends. The tone could also be playful, humorous, angry, joyful, encouraging, or really any other feeling or attitude. Learning to adjust your writing and speaking skills for different audiences and purposes is a very important element of literacy. After all, you need to be able to communicate with all the different types of people that make the world go around, not just with me. For this reason, we're going to take a close look at format, tone, and language level and see how it relates to the purpose of communication, whether you're asking to speak with a friend on a phone or responding to a personal question asked in a job interview, and also thinking about the intended audience. Okay. Before a writer starts writing, you should be asking yourself at least 3 questions. What is my subject? Who is my audience? And what is my purpose? So we're going to look at each one of these elements separately and discuss how they affect your choices of format, tone, and level of language. First of all, we're going to look at subject. Subject is just a different way of saying the topic, right? There are as many things to write about as there are people to write, probably even more. Once you decide on the topic you're going to write about, or sometimes it's assigned, right? You have to narrow it down to make it manageable and less scary. The more specific or smaller the topic, the more precise the writing, and that's what you want. For example, snowmobiles is a huge topic. There are literally hundreds and thousands of things I could say or write about snowmobiles. And I could write in all sorts of formats, poems, news articles, songs, procedurals, journals, right? I could write an opinion paragraph, a summary, an informational paragraph. You pick what format works best for what kind of information you're trying to convey and how it works with your purpose. Quick reminder, there are 3 types of purpose: to inform, to entertain, or to persuade. Okay, so when you're thinking about your subject, first, how much space do you have, right? If I've got half a page, obviously I need to pick a smaller topic than if I'm trying to write a book that will take me a year to write. If you want to write everything you need to know, then it's going to be a textbook. But if you're only writing a small paragraph, you want to choose a very narrow topic. So let's say I narrowed it down to Arctic cat snowmobiles. That's still a pretty big topic. You need to narrow it down even further to figure out which one to focus on. In Jimmy's case in our novel, maybe he wants to write about something like how to change a spark plug in a snowmobile, or why the Arctic cat is the best snowmobile to buy. Now, remember that for the upcoming assignment, we are just imagining our topic ideas. Nobody has to write the actual paragraph. And I'm saying this because every year I get people handing me in the paragraphs and I feel really bad each time because it's more work than you had to do for this particular assignment. The way I was taught was that it's like a funnel. Like up here would be your big topic, and we make it smaller, smaller, smaller to fit into the funnel, right? So let's say I wanted to write a book about, or want to write something about being a parent. Well, whole books have been written about parenting. That's the up top. Now I want to make it smaller. What are some smaller topics that might work? My favorite memory as a parent, camping with toddlers, how to get your child to bed on time, why outdoor time is good for children, helping your child become bilingual, the hardest thing about parenting. Okay, so we are working on assignment 32, part A. And part A is create a paragraph title, not the whole paragraph, just the title. So in this assignment, we're going to pick 2 of the topics. And for each of those 2 topics, we are going to create 2 different possible titles. Okay, so for example, let's say I picked the topic airplanes. Okay, so one idea might be my first time flying. And idea number 2 might be how to become a pilot. And that would be all I have to do. I don't have to actually write those paragraphs. I'm just thinking of my ideas. Some of the subjects that we offer as possibilities are things like moose hunting, powwows, hockey, children's clothing, Native Canadian culture, fishing, and a topic of your choosing. In other words, anything you want to write about, right? Obviously, school appropriate, please. Right? There's things I don't want to read about. Here is an example of what that looks like. Here I chose snowmobiles. And then first idea, how to change the spark plugs in a snowmobile. Number 2, why the Arctic Cat is the best snowmobile to buy. And then again, I could pick any topic, one of the topics we've got there already, or a different topic. So let's say I picked sewing. Okay, what's one thing I could write? How to choose the right sewing machine. Okay, that's one possibility. Or let's see, what could I write? How about sewing a quick gathered skirt. Okay, so this isn't meant to be a long assignment. It's just meant to be a little quick assignment where you pick things. Okay. Here are some more examples for spring. I've got planting seeds in the spring or the dangers of the winter road in spring. Trucks, how to change the oil or road trips in my truck. Snow, why snow isn't safe to eat or how to make the perfect snowman. Art, painting techniques for realistic animals or the faults of the group of 7 painters. Okay. Now, if you're having trouble thinking of title ideas, there's 2 different ways you could brainstorm things. One, what type of format would you want to write in? Like, do you want to write an opinion, a poem, a short story, a journal? And then what's its purpose? What are you trying to do with it? Okay, if you're brainstorming from format, think about some of the types of formats we've used so far. Let's say my big topic is autumn. We've got informational formats. Why leaves change color in the autumn? Procedural formats. How to choose autumn outfits that are pretty and warm. Or opinion formats. Autumn is my favorite school time of year. I could write journals or reflections where I'm looking back on my own life. Favorite fall memories. Or I could be writing a news story. Autumn craft show this weekend. I could also brainstorm from purpose. Remember how we talked about our 3 main purposes? Maybe I want to be trying to inform somebody or teach somebody. What could I teach somebody about autumn? Or what event or activity happens in autumn that I might want to write about? Why it gets cold in autumn, how to hunt moose in the fall, how to do fall cleaning. Or maybe I'm trying to persuade somebody. What opinions do I have that relate to things that happen in the fall? What do I wish we did differently in the fall? Let's not stop daylight savings times in the fall. Why fall is the perfect time to start your new fitness routines. Why I hate pumpkin spice everything. Okay, and then lastly, entertain. What could I share about fall that might entertain people in some way? Maybe I've got a funny story or a scary anecdote, or maybe some memories that might comfort somebody. The fall hayride that almost killed me. Saying goodbye to my college-bound son. A dark night in the cornfield. Right? All of those are possibilities. Please remember, you do not have to write the paragraph. You're just imagining the title. That's it. I promise Pinky promise, okay? Now, part B is talking about the main types of purpose in writing, which we've already talked about. Sometimes the short form for that is PI, P for persuade, I for inform, and E for entertain. Entertaining is the goal of most fiction. It's just meant to be fun or pleasurable to read it. Informing is when you're telling somebody or teaching somebody about something. And persuading is when you're trying to convince somebody of something or argue about something. Things like opinion columns, letters, advertising, game reviews, all that kind of stuff. Now, sometimes a specific text will have a more obvious specific goal, but generally those goals will inevitably fall into one of the three bigger categories. So for example, the goal of informing can cover a whole lot of different types of writing. Like maybe I'm trying to teach somebody how to do something, how to make perfect bannock every time. Or maybe I'm trying to tell somebody all about a topic. Let's tell all about African animals. Or, hey, the history of this town is connected to the building of the railroad. Or maybe I'm writing a news story to report about an event. Update on Hurricane Milton, latest bombings in London. Specific texts may have more specific goals. Yeah, okay. The goal of persuasion can also cover a lot of different types of writing. A cover letter is a type of persuasive writing. I think I'm perfect for this job because I bring 5 years of experience and lots of enthusiasm. Maybe I'm trying to get something like, you should give your old car to me, Dad. If you're sharing your opinion, that's also considered a type of persuasion, like pizza's the best meal for Friday nights, or, Domino's makes the best pizza. And then if you're trying to get somebody to buy something, that's also considered a type of persuasion. Come on down now and buy my fresh blueberry jam at only $5 a jar. Entertaining. Entertaining is a really wide category, okay? And it just means that you're trying to make sure your audiences will enjoy it. Sometimes people think of entertaining like it has to be funny, but that isn't necessarily the case, right? People like to read things that are scary or spooky or things that make them laugh, but some people even enjoy reading sad things, right? Or things that they've gone through themselves. Some people are looking for writing that's very beautiful or rhythmic, like lyrics, or intellectually challenging, right? What people find entertaining is a huge field. It can be based on facts or completely made up. Now, I want to point out one tricky area is sometimes people are writing about an entertainment event and people aren't sure. Does that count as informing or does that count as entertaining? Normally, I would lean on it's probably counting as informing, right? If I'm telling you all the details about what's going on at the Dryden Fair, I'm informing you about it. Now, let's say I am a vendor at the Dryden Fair making money and I'm writing about it. Maybe then I'm trying to persuade you to come down. But if you're just generically telling somebody about a concert or about an event, then it's informing and not entertaining, normally. It might be persuasion, but it's not usually entertaining. Other topics or titles that might imply, maybe you're telling a joke or an entertainment or anecdote, horror story. Yeah, these aren't really titles. I'm going to kind of skip over that. Okay, so let's practice. What's the purpose behind each sentence? You are writing a recipe down for a friend who wants you to make chocolate chip cookies. Am I informing them, persuading them, or entertaining them? I'm informing them because they've already decided to make them. I'm not trying to convince them. And I'm not trying to be silly or fun. I'm just trying to give them what they want. You are writing a funny story for a nephew who you are trying to cheer up while he's sick. Well, in this case, I'm trying to entertain him, right? Trying to get his mind off what's going on. You are writing a letter to your boss, trying to convince him to upgrade the computers. Okay, the moment I'm trying to convince somebody, I am trying to persuade them, okay? And that's exactly what we do in part B. Look at the sentence and decide, is it inform, persuade, or entertain? Sentence number 1 is, the best snowmobile on the planet is the Arctic Cat. Sentence number 2, Jimmy went to school so that he could stay out of jail. Number 3, Let me tell you about the time Gary and I stayed out all night and the fun we had. Okay, part C. Part C is talking about the audience, the person or people who will read your writing. Now, I know that in most cases, right, I'm the actual person reading the writing. But for some of our assignments, we are pretending that someone else is reading it, right? Like if you're writing a news story, then you're pretending that there are newspaper readers out there who are going to read it, and you're thinking about what they're like, okay? Thinking about your audience helps you to figure out the content, what you're going to write about, the language, what type of words you're going to use, and the tone, how you write. When we speak, we naturally modify or change what we talk about and how we talk about it according to our partners in conversation, so that we can get the most out of what we're talking about and make everybody feel comfortable and included. So some people do this automatically when they write too. Some people haven't really thought about it. So I'm just trying to kind of make you aware of this issue so that you begin to think about it and begin to do it if you haven't been doing it before, right? For part C, you're going to use your understanding of audience to give the exact same message, but to different people. So you're not going to use the same words because they're different people. Your overall purpose is to inform. The idea you're trying to get across is not going to change, but the words, the tone, the language level, and the sentence structure is going to change to be most effective or appropriate to your audience. Your message is, you do not feel well and you will not be coming to class today. Write at least 2 to 3 sentences for each one, and it cannot be the exact same sentence repeated over and over again. And I think on the page, the 3 types of audience are your teacher, your parents, and your friends. And so how would you write it differently for each one of those? Okay, so talking about this, changing your sentence structure depending on age, first language, or intelligence level. So if I'm talking to a 2-year-old toddler and they're about to touch a hot stove, I might just go, oh, no touch, right? Or even no, because that's all they really understand. I don't need to go into a lot of detail. They're not going to get it, right? If I was talking to a slightly older child, I'm going to, oh, stove is hot, right? If someone's brand new to our country, we might also revert to using simpler sentences, right? Or if they're just learning English for the first time. Also, if we're working with somebody who's developmentally disabled, that might get confused by a longer sentence with more clauses and descriptions, we might also revert to very simple sentence structures. But once you're talking about teenagers and adults, you're generally going to be able to hear and understand more sophisticated sentence structures. For example, compound sentences. That's where we have 2 independent clauses joined by a coordinating conjunction. I hate getting up in the mornings, but I have to get to work. Or complex sentences, where we have 1 independent clause and 1 dependent clause, and they're joined by a subordinating conjunction. After I finish getting the dishes and vacuuming done, I am going to go out back and organize the shed. And then compound complex sentences. This one has at least 3 clauses, 2 independent clauses and 1 or more dependent clauses. For example, although Sierra prefers watching romantic films, she watched the latest spy thriller with a friend, and she enjoyed it very much. Now, these ones you do have to be careful of. It's easy to turn them into a run-on sentence if you're not careful. So be mindful of that. All right, tone. We've talked about tone, like how it makes us feel, but how do we use different tones in terms of writing words? It depends a little bit on the types of words we are using, right? If I say, oh, that guy's a freedom fighter, I'm kind of using a bit of a positive tone in my words. If I say that person's a terrorist, I'm automatically kind of getting across a negative tone because of the vocabulary I've chosen, right? So here's 2 examples. And I want you to think about what type of tone do they have and what parts of it do you think are contributing to that tone? The mother looked on her angry daughter standing in the golden light of the sunset. Her dark hair was spiky like a tangle of crooked vines, and it glistened with streaks of pink and orange. Her jeans were torn and dirty, and the faded t-shirt was too tight. Her daughter was a stranger to her, and she could not think of words that might convince her not to go. So, what is the tone? See, to me, there's a little bit of, I'm not sure about condemnation or judgment. She talks about her being angry. It's her hair's spiky, it's tangled, it's crooked. Her jeans are torn and dirty. Those are all sort of negative, slightly judgmental things. Here's a slightly different one. Dave couldn't wait to quit this stupid job. He was tired of seeing the ugly green siding as he pulled up to the parking lot. Could they have chosen any uglier color than this puke green? The secretary, with the sneer on her face as she said hello, made him itch to say cruel words about her clothes, her hair, anything to bring her down a peg. He felt a wave of loathing as he entered into his gray, dingy cubicle and sat down on the broken office chair that he complained about so often. It creaked as he settled in, then tilted annoyingly to one side. He felt heat rush to his face at this newest sign of insufficiency. He debated internally stealing someone else's chair, but he forced himself to set aside the delight he felt at the idea. He gritted his teeth and turned his computer on for another day of the grind. So in this one, he's using some like kind of insulting words, stupid, ugly, sneer, a lot of words about his feelings, loathing, annoyingly, insufficiently. So all those kind of things are contributing to the tone of the writing, right? This one is kind of angry and a little bit mean. All right, let me see here. So some examples of how what you might say would change depending on your audience, tone, level of language, and sentence structure. I would say if you're having trouble with this, think about what you would say out loud. Like actually, you can even just say it and then write it down. So let's say I was going to talk to somebody about breaking up with a girlfriend. And I was talking to, say, your mom. Hi, Mom, can I talk to you? I feel bad, but I think I'm going to break up with Martha. We just don't seem to be getting along anymore. I'm just trying to figure out how to explain it to her without her feelings being hurt. And then maybe if I was explaining to a friend, dude, I think me and Martha are through. I am just fed up with her. She is always whining and complaining. This is just not worth it anymore. I am telling her tonight. And then if he's talking to the actual girlfriend, I really like you, but it seems like we aren't really happy being with me anymore. We always seem to be fighting over every little thing. I think maybe we would both be happier if we just went back to being friends. So you see how my tone changed, the type of language I used, and the sentence structure changed a lot too. Okay. Yep, we've done this. Yep, we talked about this. Okay. Try to make sure your sentences are as different as possible. Modify your language level. What's your reading? What kind of slang are you using? What kind of vocabulary? Modify your tone. Try to modify your sentence length or variety. Short, longer, type of, details. Not sure why this is not wanting to stay. It's funny, I've fixed this so many times and then for some reason, Google keeps wanting us to get back the other way. All right. And we have basically wrapped up. I know it's a lot. It's a short actual assignment. It's just there's a lot packed into it at once. If you're having problems with it, give me a phone call or send me an email and I would be happy to help you with it. This is the last class for this week. I am still here tomorrow. I'll be in the office all day if you need to talk to me. Next week, we start week 7, okay? So if you're planning to graduate, please try to get things in by next week. If you have concerns about that, call me and we will figure stuff out, okay? Take care and have a good evening.